can't do that here.
Hello. This is about ready to begin. Yeah. Sweet disaster. There we go. I'm gonna mute this. Here we go. Let's go. So this is probably going to be a short stream. Mostly doing this because I forgot to stream yesterday. So I am a good YouTuber. Oh man. Not compared. Drop. There we go. Ouch. There a lot. Well, it wasn't so much that it hurt, but it sucked. So on my own time, I've started to play a druid summoner, so I could sort of do a one-for-one comparison. I still... Excuse me. I don't know. Like, honestly, my... Druid Summoner has been kicking a lot of butt too, so... But, like, I'm withholding judgment, of course. Like, for one thing, I can't really judge them with how good they are until they reach endgame, because that's sort of what people look for, and also sort of what Diablo is as a game. It's all about the endgame. Excuse me, which can be summarized as get better gear to get to higher difficulties. And you try to see how high a difficulty you can go. Diablo 2 is a bit different than Diablo 3 in the sense that it doesn't scale infinitely. Diablo 3 does scale infinitely, so it's really about seeing how far you can go before you hit a roadblock with your build, or whatever. You know, Diablo 2 is just saying about if you can make it all the way to those highest difficulty and succeed, or not just succeed, flourish. It's like saying how well you can do at that highest difficulty. But that said, yeah, it's hard to say which one would be better into reaching there. The thing is, with the Druid Summoner, I'm messing the Amplified Damage Curse, which is kind of like a nuke this button. I was also looking up a video about why the Necromancer Summoner was so good, and I mentioned something about teleporting, Which confuses me because I don't think the Necromancer can teleport. They may get gear that lets them teleport, in which case what makes the Necromancer Summoner so good, and I'm already noticing this at lower levels with the Druid Summoner, is that when you teleport, you force your minions where you are. And one of the issues with the Druid Summoner is that the minions run off on their own. They will teleport to you if you get far enough away, but that's not always an option. So there's an issue of... oh, excuse me. Your minions just running off in a direction that you do not want. And it's a big deal because your minions are your entire build with your summoner, right? And that's where your damage is, it's where your survivability is. So if they're just running off doing their own friggin' things, you're like, well, I wanted to go left today, but I guess I'm going right. Because if I go left and you're not here, I'm going to die. There's that. And with the Druid Summoner, you can't really do much about it. But with the Necromancer Summoner, apparently you can teleport, but I'm like, what? It might be an item that they get, in which case, yeah, it's like, okay, get it. And yeah, I mean, honestly, if that is a difference, it might seem like very minor and not enough to bump the Druid down from an S tier to like a C tier or B tier, wherever it was when I looked at the tier list. But it kind of is. Like, your minions are the whole crux of the build, and dependability, and that will sort of dictate how useful it is. And if you can't really depend on your minions to be there when you need them, then yeah. It might not be the case. I really don't know. The video is just saying you can teleport. It's like, okay, don't know what lets the Necromancer teleport, and I don't know why it would be over the Druid. Excuse me. But yeah, I think with the changes for the Druid Summoner, it's definitely a lot better than it was. I feel like this should be higher up on their tier list. It was weird that they had Werebearer, but my friend's like, you need the survivability. I'm like, okay, but you can add the life pad, and he's like, it probably wouldn't be enough if you're getting one-shot. It's like, this is true, but it's like, is it enough to counteract being one-shot? Because obviously it's not. Oh, I have a life pet. I mean, I'm still being one-shotted, but it's good enough. It's like, no, obviously the pet's there to keep you from being fucking one-shotted. Sorry for swearing. But it's like, obviously, if it doesn't prevent that, then yeah, of course. But like, there's an issue, right? Because one of the things that you can do, though I guess they're not even doing this with the Necromancer Summoner. They still use melee weapons with a Necromancer Summoner, which is like, okay. I feel like it's underutilizing the Summoner build, because one of the Summoner's strengths is that I don't have to go up there and get hurt. And that's like sort of the thing. It's like, why would you force yourself to do that with putting points into Werebearer? Because any of the shape-shifting skills require you to run up to the target and do shit. Another thing I'm noticing right now, much better on my mana to be a freaking Necromancer Summoner, because Ravens cost so much to keep up. It's like, yeah, you could technically not have your Ravens, but then you're not having a part of your squad, which most people back in the day were like, Ravens weren't even worth investing in, which is, yeah, true. Like, they required a large investment to even be sort of useful, and I don't imagine that the had enough strength and power to scale to the higher difficulties. It's sort of the strength of the Ravens is that they're constant damage, or rather consistent damage, because they're untargetable, and I feel like they were underappreciated for that. But the fact of the matter is, it's like, yeah, that's true, but it might not be enough to really be significant or useful at higher levels, because at higher levels you sort of need like at least enough damage to kill monsters quickly, or you need some other survivability that the Ravens might have just not provided, and points invested into that are points that you can invest into other skills that might give you that. But one of the biggest issues with the Druid Summoner has been addressed, which is you could only have one summon type out at any time. Like, even, well, that's not completely fair to say. You could only have one kind of animal summon, which I think is still sort of the case with the Necromancer. It's just, this is negated by the fact that it was like only one kind of skeletons out at a time. And that's fine, because you'd have your skeletons, then you'd have your golem, and then you'd have the revive minions, which, yeah, that's a lot of bodies. And also revive... let's just look at that skill. I did level up and never got to. So revive, you resurrect a monster, and you give it more health and damage. So, yeah, you just take one of the monsters in the game, and you have it fight for you for a few seconds at a stronger, you know, stronger than it normally would be, which is, whew, okay then. So, yeah, I can get that being amazing, because now you have monsters that scale, right? No matter what difficulty you are on, you will have a summon that is capable. The Druids don't get that. Like, you just get the incremental bonuses with your summons. So they're as strong as they get. And that is that. So, honestly, that is something that tips it towards the Necromancer. Yeah. I sort of want to get that to 20 sooner than later. I don't know. Let's get that to 40. Yep, to 2. But still, like, I feel like the Druid Summoner could better if they were to avoid using Werebear as a skill. I feel like Vines is underappreciated. It might just be the case that they don't have enough survivability later on, which is a shame, because the way that Druids are built, like the Druid Summoner, what I am noticing right now, actually really depends on Poison Creeper, more so than people might think. Because, as a Necromancer, I get the ability to hit Amplify damage. Right, which is sort of like, I want to nuke this target. You don't get that as the Druid. So instead, what you need to do is you need to, like, have the weakening skills that are provided by, well, weakening in this case is like lowering their health, like actually weakening the monsters. Oh, the goal for the stream, by the way, is to clear out the Countess Tower. So you need to, like, I ran right by where I needed to go. I was like, where the heck is this? So, you need to lower the monster's health, which is provided by the Poison Creeper. But again, doesn't scale, it's incremental, it will reach its cap, and that's it. And Vines, mechanically, they don't get hurt when they're in the ground, so they actually have low health, because they can only be hurt when they're actually actively doing their thing, which on paper sounds reasonable, but in practice may not actually be, because it could be the case that when your Poison Creeper goes to attack, that it dies instantly just because of how much damage the monsters are doing and how much stuff is going on, which would make that skill pointless, which is honestly a huge crux of the summoner, or could be, is having that, because for one, it would make it so damage that's resisted by or like the physical damage immunity, it would bypass that because now you're doing poison damage with a summon. So it seems like it's supposed to be there, but it just may have not been a case that it was good enough. And it may not still be good enough. But yeah. And then it was nice that they gave wolves cold damage. I feel like that's kind of still important. So just going off again what I was just saying about physical damage immunity, now there is at least a way to bypass that. Because another thing that was holding the Druid Summoner back was no way to circumvent that. All your minions did physical damage. Besides the Poison Creeper, and the Poison Creeper probably didn't have enough survivability. But that said, at least early game, the Druid Summoner is pretty darn powerful and on par with the Necromancer. As the advantage of being able to summon whenever the heck they want, as opposed to the Necromancer needs dead bodies in order to summon a skeleton, which the Summoner has a skeleton as sort of one of its cruxes. The Golem is okay, but the Golem is one body. And the strength of any summon class is the ability to have more bodies. So it's really hard to justify just having the one. Like, you can do it in group play, because you have an additional player, well, not player, but additional character that's tougher, and then you just have your minion, or your friends, sorry. That was an honest mistake. You just have your friends kind of fulfill the position of what the other summons would do for you when you're in solo play. That said, man, it's still better just to go with skeletons, because then you get the strength of that, even the group play. Oh, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to identify this dagger and then compare it. So compare it to the club. The dagger does more damage with a very fast attack speed. So it says, but honestly, that club does a lot more damage. Slightly slower, but yeah. But my friend asked me, he's like, which summoner do you want to be better? I was like, I honestly don't care. He's like, I think you're lying to me because of how much you like druids. And it's like, the honest truth is I don't care. One of the things they teach you in science is everybody has a bias, which I sort of have an issue with, but that comes down to the fact that bias has a bias carries a certain connotation with it. You know, like we sort of have in our mind's eye sort of like a vision or belief or believes around bias, that word, really weird way of phrasing it, but you know what I mean. When people say the word bias, things come to mind, and it's usually like negative. It's like bias is I don't want to say like lack of evidence towards a thing and you still believe it, because it's not quite that. It's just like bias has a negative connotation, that it's like, oh, you have this slant and that's not good, and therefore scientists, they're like, take that out of your mind. Bias doesn't mean that. It just means that you have a slant towards something You have to acknowledge it because we all have biases. That always bugged me, but I understand where they're coming from. It's a matter of definitions and so forth, and yeah, the thing is, as a person, it is so important for me to be as impartial as I can be that, I don't know, that sits with me wrong. But that said, like, I acknowledge that I do have slants, but I would say my biggest slant is to be as impartial as possible. So my bias is to just kind of be in the middle and try not to have a bias. Try not to be like, I want the necromancer or I want the druid to be better. At the end of the day, I really don't care. Like, I just want to be impartial, kind of looking at it as objective as possible, and just, yeah, understand. I just want to understand what's going on, the deeper core mechanics, and why, you know, one is better than the other, what makes them different. Because especially, I won't lie, I always like druids summoning better, because druid summoners could summon whenever they wanted to. You didn't need to have bodies. I hated the reliance on corpses, though honestly the skeletons are living long enough that it's not a big issue. I'm not sure if they did buff their survivability with the patch. I think they might have done that. Though, honestly, they didn't really change much. They said that they were happy with it, which makes sense because it is a fan favorite of the community. And that said, they really only adjusted, like, the golems and the mages, from what I remember of that patch. The patch that made it so, like, druid summoners could summon all their pets and stuff like that. I do agree that not being able to have all your pets out and things like that really hurt the druid summoner, because a lot of them you wouldn't even bother having. Like, you would put points into, like, say, the grizzly, but you wouldn't have a grizzly because it's essentially the same issue that having a golem focused necromancer is, which is it's only one additional body. And it's like, yeah, it's a tanky pet, but it's not enough, and that's it. It's just not enough. But having it with a group of wolves, yes. And now it makes it so, like, spirit wolves were also something that would be neglected. Spirit wolves were, like, you invested your points into, and you got dire wolves. Dire wolves was what was recommended to build for if you're going for a druid summoner, because it was like a mix. You got some bodies, but they were tougher. And also was the only way to increase the lives of your summons, which is obviously important, because you need your summons to live, or else they're not doing shit, and summons are expensive. And mechanically speaking, the druid summons are more expensive to summon than the, like, skeletons of a necromancer, because they don't require a corpse. So necromancer summons, specifically, again, the skeletons, require less mana, but bodies in order to actually do the summon. So, that's me acknowledging, it's like, okay, little kid me, or not even little kid me, like, even just getting back into the game and stuff, I was wrong about that. It's like, oh, druid summoners are just better because they summon whenever they want, and they can have so many bodies, and blah blah blah. And, like, ravens, I've always felt were underappreciated, because it is damage that can't be ignored. They will attack you, which is not completely true. There's physical immunities, and from what I understand, physical immunity is actually rather prevalent. Honestly, I would have had ravens be the one that added, like, cold damage, or added the elemental damage to. I feel like that would have made the druid better. people might disagree, because again, Ravens is not that valued of a skill, but my thing is, what would do to the Druid Summoner is make it so they now have, like, unavoidable damage. So what the Ravens should have done, or should have added, is magic damage. Because magic is the least resisted. So it would give the Druid, the Druid Summoner, reliable damage. Which is something that's incorporated into the Necromancer because you have your amplified damage curse, which just makes it so you ignore physical immunity. And now your summons stay useful. And that cannot be understated. So it's good that they made those changes. I don't think it's quite enough to make it so Druid Summoners are better. I mean, I would have to playtest it, which I'm trying to do. I think, ultimately, I don't know. I guess sort of the thing is, in order to properly put it into a tier, not only would I have to test these builds, I would have to test them against other build types. Which I acknowledge that. So I'm not going to try to even do that in my own time. But I feel like the goal for Blizzard, right, isn't to make it so Druid Summoners are busted. And I appreciate that. It should be more like you want to aim, if we're going to relate it to like a tier list, you want to aim for making your builds like B tier. Okay. And I say B tier, I won't personally use that, but the logic that people use behind tier lists, I'm not 100% down with. Because most people are B tier, average. C tier, the situational void usually. That's not how grading systems is supposed to work. But to be fair, it's sort of like how in practice the grading system is, right? Because like, okay, technically a C is average, but if you're getting a C, it's kind of like not good enough, and sometimes it doesn't even carry over to like if you're transferring credits and things like that, sometimes it, yeah, C doesn't carry over. So there is that, right? Drink that. Because, oof, they did some decent damage to me. But now I'm going off on a tangent. So just to go back to what I was saying. What you want to do is aim for your builds to be sort of average, right? Because you don't want things to be like busted. You want people to want to play around and try different things, and that it is good enough to carry you through the game. Because for one, that encourages replayability, because, you know, you get to try all sorts of different things that do work. And it's fine if it's not necessarily that, as long as you have a few that do, because you still get that. And admittedly, at the end of the day, it's really hard to avoid a meta, because games are complex systems, and it's really hard to balance everything perfectly. And in some places, I would say it's not even fun, because that would require making sure that you have a very specific set of circumstances, right? That way you can, like, control outcomes and stuff more. So powerful. That said, at these early levels, it also gained similar results with the Druid Summoner in terms of
treasure finding.
with a my Necromancer Summoner in terms of damage output. It's just different because damage output for them is dependent on sort of the Poison Creeper and the Ravens. The changes that they did make to Ravens, though, really upped their damage, so it's still equivalent to pecking your enemies to death, but an early game, gosh, as it's still a lot of power. There you go, so much health, it's ridiculous. Can I do both a Skeleton Mage and that? I don't think so, and I think I still want to focus on skeletons in general. Yeah. I don't really want to do a whole lot into Skull Mastery, I know that. I think I do want 20 points into here. I'll check. Yeah, I do want 20 points into there, whereas I'm only going to put 8 points into here, but I am going to put 20 into there. I guess one of the things too, right, based on how many points you get in this game, you don't need to focus on Golem or Skeleton. You can do both. I'm only going to put 8 points into here. But hear me out. I know I really want to max this as quickly as possible. That's mostly going to be my goal. I'm only going to put a point into this because it increases the run speed of my Golem, and sort of its issue is that it's kind of slow. So I just want to kind of get it moving a little bit faster right now to help counteract that. To help it just like be more useful as we level up. And I'm still focusing on the skeletons. They're sort of the crux of everything. Only putting 1 point into Skeleton Mage anyway. I'm not sure with the changes that they made to Skeleton Mage if it is viable to do as a mage build. Might be. But yeah. But I mean, I won't lie, I still like Druid more than Necromancer. I like Necromancer now as an adult, but for one, I still prefer life. I prefer nature. It's really important to me. That may be a weird way of wording it, but nature is just, yeah, it's more, I don't want to use the word attractive, but yeah, it is just something that I like. The aesthetic, it's more appealing. There we go, appealing. And that may seem like, I don't know, what it is, like you have life or death, which one's more appealing? It's like, obviously life, but maybe. I mean, I get the Necromancer aesthetic, there's something about it, like the forbidden magic, you have like the undeath, so it's like surpassing death. there's stuff to it.
Not in town.
I thought the stories of treasure in the tower were nothing but lies. Good day.
Yeah, thank you for saying stuff. Decker King, you better not say shit to me or I'll kill you.
Good day. To do battle with Andario requires more than thick skin and a strong will. Your rewards are well earned. To us, the tower was nothing more than a headstone looming over.
Alright, wait a me audibly waxing poetic with that.
Well done, my friend. Courage.
Gosh darn, I love Decker Kane, and I think it was stupid that they killed him. They did it mostly to be like, oh, he's dead. Can you imagine? He was an important character throughout the series, and it's sad. You know, like to really tug at our heartstrings and stuff, and it's like, okay. But, I mean, the honest truth, it kind of sucks, but it doesn't suck in the right way. Like, oh no, it's tragic that we, like, even the main characters can go. It's just sad because Deckard Cain is the only character that was, like, through games and the strongest character. Just not really saying a whole lot. The characters in, do I need a faster cast rate? Not really, honestly. So now thinking about it, it would have been terrible. Whatever, it's not important enough to get back. I don't remember what I was just saying. He's talking about these guys, right? Oh, I'd have to go back in the stream, which I could, but that'd take a minute and whatever. Well, I guess we did the tower, which was the goal of this stream. Let's get to the cathedral then. Honestly, because it's sort of like a stone's throw away from here, so. The hole. Oh, hell yeah, I like to go in the hole. Don't take that out of context, but. Man, I can't really remember what I was talking about. Oh, that life, death, necromancer. It's just that the nature aesthetic is really appealing to me. I also like rangers too. I don't play them as much. But the aesthetic of like having curses that forbidden knowledge. I was talking about how like circumventing death is sort of appealing, which yeah, I get that. But yeah, the necromancer's like forbidden knowledge, right? And it's like fighting fire with fire. We're using death and demons to fight death and demons. And it's like, ooh, what is, they rightfully get called like edgelords. Well, rightfully. I mean, is this guy really an edgelord, this necromancer? No. Kind of, maybe. But, you know, it's like, they're emo goths or whatever's. That isn't it, but, like, mechanically speaking, curses were never really something that's my thing. But god damn, is this curse ridiculous. One of the things is there's so much frickin' scaling with the necromancer, right? The druid has the incremental stuff, and so that just doesn't scale. Whereas here, right, this monster thing's percentile based on the thing. So end game, you just make those end game monsters, which are tough, even tougher when they fight for you. And it's like, yes, obviously it's going to scale because it's taking the monsters of that level appropriate nature and having them fight for you. What happened to my... I had a thing. There it is. I have an external hard drive because the hard drive on the PC is so low. Space-wise. Ugh. But it's like, even though these skeletons don't really scale per se, like they just have their stats, which may just be good enough. Excuse me, say with this golem. It's like, yeah. And then here, right, the curses, that's what I wanted to do. Does this? Oh, this corpse explosion scales. Freaking it's 70 to 120% of the corpse life. Imagine just doing that on like a tanky monster in the upper end stuff, right? It's like they have 5,000 health, and you're doing 120% of that. Oof. I mean, there's that range, but again, scales. This bone teeth scale. Oh no, that's kind of disappointing. And this, the 100% more damage, scales. It just friggin' scales. It was like ridiculous, and that is hard to really compete with. But again, this is also just looking at the skills themselves and whatever. It's not taking into account items, set bonuses, and such that really tip things, change things around. There is sort of a crux to any build because of the bonuses that they'll add. Diablo 2, I'm noticing, they don't really add a whole lot of unique things as opposed to strong variables, but there you go. In order to maximize your potential, you really should have them. But in terms of like the perks that a build would get, or, you know, like the unique variables, that sort of comes from your skills, if I'm not mistaken. I only bring that up because this is in contrast to Diablo 3, which gear does add perks for you that, you know, change up builds significantly. Like, for example, there's Zamatsu's Haunt for Diablo 3 makes it so you, like, whenever you cast a spell that costs mana, your minions do 15,000 more damage for a few seconds. It's essentially me doing that. That's why I said the summoner build for the necromancer very similar to that. And that game, it's not as strong. I mean, admittedly, this is not the crux of the summoner build. The amplify damage is an important part. It's your nuke this button, but yeah, otherwise it's not like the only thing the build has going for it. Zamatsu's Haunt has issues, and one of the biggest issues is just what I was talking about earlier with summoner builds in general, which is you need your summons to be there. So Zamatsu's Haunt, or Zamatsu's Haunt, or whatever, I forget how it's pronounced, and I only kind of visualizing it in my head, is a summon damage set, right? Which is cool, except now you're dependent on your summons, which they sort of just run off and do their own thing. You can't command them, unlike the necromancer, which can actually command their minions to attack a specific target, which again makes them more useful. This is specifically Diablo 3. I can't do that in this game. So unless they teleport, you know, if the Necromancer can teleport, whereas the Druid can't, which would force minions there, I could see how that would, again, tilt it in the Necromancer's favor for being the better build. But yeah, like, curses were another something that interested me. Curses are just kind of like, okay. But now that I'm older, it's like, they're very good. Like, hell, just 1 point in amplify damage, and I'm doing double damage. That just scales, because as I increase my damage, I increase double damage, and I could invest into it, and then doing more, and it's like, whoa, I don't even, like, have to. 1 point is all I need to be like, boop, die. And the poison and bone skills, I don't even know. So it's just like, ultimately, the Necromancer to me was not my cup of tea. And nowadays I like it more. Actually, I kind of like the aesthetic. It's, you know, forbidden magic and all that. I still like the Druid more. And I still like Druid characters. And if we're like talking Diablo, not Diablo, sorry, D&D, it's not even competition. I mean, Necromancer's cool and all, which is just a specific kind of wizard type. But Druids are a fun class, right? You can, like, they're very supposed to be kind of like a jack of all trades kind of a character, where they can do variety of things, and I appreciate that. And they may not be the best at one or the other, but, you know, they can do it. So they can kind of be built to be like, well, exactly as I said, or they can, like, kind of focus into one aspect of their being, like casting or summoning or whatever, to, you know, make them more focused and specialized, and thus able to compete with even other classes that is their niche, kind of. Like, still, I feel like a wizard would actually be the way to go if you want to be a shapeshifter, because they have even better shapeshifting than a druid, stuff like that. But the Druid package is kind of nice. It's fun. It's streamlined, so you don't have to have as much knowledge of D&D and stuff to make it work. A lot of these, like, things is like, oh, that's just technically better. It's like, you gotta have some knowledge of the system and what things you have to get in order to make it work. But, yeah. Sort of like meta game-wise, right? A fighter cleric is stronger than a paladin. It's like, okay, that's true, because stuff, you get, like, sort of access to some specialized things to both that you wouldn't get as a paladin. Okay, gotta be careful. I'm being surrounded, but I can loop around here. Die. I should have used corpse explosion there, along with amplified damage. There we go. I need to remember corpse explosion, that's all. But it's sort of like a tangent. And I still feel like Paladin offers some fun, unique things that make it so I would want to do it over like a fighter cleric. Like, for example, they get to smite, which is they get to expend spell slots in order to do more damage. Yeah, little things like that. And they get some pretty interesting capstones, like you become immune to aging, which is a role-playing thing, admittedly, but hey, it's a role-playing game at the end of the day. I guess the same can be said about Diablo in terms of like the pursuit of the meta. It's like, how important is it to you to be in the meta versus just having a character that is fun and just jives with you? Because admittedly my issue is like, oh, the build types are limited, but it's like, well, maybe I'm just thinking about it in terms of what is the meta builds. It's like, I only gotta do the meta builds, which is not specifically true. And heck, I would even say that like some builds that people might say are garbage, and the right hands can do some amazing things. People tend to just shut them off. And it might be the case. I'm not saying that it will never be the case that they will always underperform as opposed to people who are good at the other builds. But the point is, they may perform better in your hands than builds that are the meta just because it matches your playstyle better. And the meta doesn't. So it's like, well, technically this is better. It's because of the hand that wields it, right? Again, also just an oversimplification because, you know, some builds could just be very straightforward and easy to use no matter who you are. It's not always like just the black and white, but I am saying that it is more complicated and nuanced than these builds are just better. I especially noticed that while playing Evolved a lot, was that like a lot of the monsters that the people who have been playing for a while said were overpowered would be monsters that are hard for newbies to use. So new players would use them and be like, this monster is so garbage. It's just that they have like a high skill ceiling. Which is also another thing that tends to be the case, which is things with a high skill ceiling tend to perform better. Which I guess makes sense because that's the whole definition of the skill ceiling, right? Is that high skill ceiling means that it takes longer to reach the cap, but the cap is a better performing cap as opposed to, okay, help me out, someone's great. I don't like corpse explosion. No, it's sort of an issue. I don't like relying on the corpses. I get it. Like, it's a balancing thing, so you can get really powerful stuff. It just requires dead bodies. And the game tape that Diablo is, you usually have a bunch of bodies, but not always. For me, I always just notice the cracks. It's like, I don't have it when I really want it. But that's also not fair. Or specifically true, that's what I mean. Gosh darn. But yeah. Just like, I think as gamers we should be more appreciative of people just like doing their thing. Which, admittedly, some of us are, and whatever. I guess I'm bringing that up not so much as, like, the hypothetical of them. It's like, maybe I should just be more accepting of these different builds. Because I would be if another person was playing them. It's like, yeah, you do you, even if it's not the meta. But, and it's not that I'm, like, specifically driving for the meta, or driving to be S tier. I don't need everything to be that. But I guess then there's always like that part of me that's like, I'm so underperforming. And they're like, well, of course, because you didn't pick the meta. It's like, I don't want to have to meta hunt, but then with that comes with like the acceptance that you may not be the most powerful thing there is. It is definitely a clash with me. I found the waypoint that I was trying to find over here. Where like, I don't want to meta hunt, but there's always a part of me that wants to be the best I can be in any of life situations. But yeah. I like how right now my life is like the reverse of my max. Instead of 119, I have 91. And it's as close as I'm going to get, because otherwise I'd have more HP than my max. It's like my max is 119, but I have 911 HP. Alright. I mean, depending on the game, that's possible if you can get 10 HP, but yeah. And I am fine with taking things just for the fun of it. It's definitely easier in the games where you're not competitive, right? Because if you're not competing with anyone, then it's like, okay, maybe I'm not clearing this out as fast as some other build types, but it's okay. But if it's a competitive game, it's harder to be accepting, because you're like, god damn, I keep losing, I keep dying, and it's just because I'm playing the characters that aren't as good, which is really tough and kind of sad, and therefore more important for the developers to make it so all the characters are more even, which can be hard, especially if you have characters that do different things. Like if it's a 1-for-1, like this team has the same characters that the other team has. Example, Chivalry, where you have the same classes on each side. It's a 1-for-1. Therefore, the only difference depends on how many people on your team are playing specific classes. Oops. Heck, I don't even need to identify them because Decker Kane's over here doing his Decker Kane thing. Wow, that sucks. So does that. I'm gonna sell them both.
Yes?
Ooh. Yeah, it's just a little bit better. Or I should say, more generally useful. One if it 2 fire damage is nice. I'll keep it. How much arrows do I have? 341. That's 448. I wanted to call my medical, talk to him about stuff, but I'll do it tomorrow, and I'll remind myself, and I'll do it tomorrow. Because I was also kind of thinking, it's like, do I actually want to do that today, or do I want to do it tomorrow? And I'm leaning towards tomorrow, and that does the point, definitely. They're closing now, so I'm not doing it tonight. I don't want to be that jerk that like calls 5 minutes before they close and be like, hey, can you just help me answer my questions, please? Haha, sorry. Die. Thanks. But yeah. I'm trying to think about my thoughts and organize them. I don't know. I don't know. Die. Thanks. I will definitely say that while it sounds like I'm really concerned with tier list, it is only something that is recent, and my infatuation with it is really just to understand. I do it for research for stuff that I don't know too well, and then I analyze it and I look at it just to be like, okay, this stuff is generally favored, so I should probably lean towards getting that. It's not about being like overpowered, even if I do lean towards getting S tier stuff. It's more just like, hey, you know, I don't really know this system. I would like to use this stuff that works well. So yeah, even though it sounds like I'm super focused on that, it's not completely true. No. Oh my god. Oh, there goes all my mana. Holy shit. Corpse explosion does cost a lot of mana. How much mana does it cost? It cost 15 mana. Alright. I can't even get it to target the freaking monsters I want to. That's a little bit ridiculous, to be honest. I mean, if it was PC, it would be a little bit better, because I could hover my cursor. Yes, die. That's okay, I'll learn the quirks, but... These are some optional dungeons I didn't even know existed. Like, this is actually interesting. I might have known about them as a kid, but I have not been in this dungeon since replaying the game as an adult. I don't remember the whole kind of the pit. I don't know. I don't remember this at all. I mean, it's sort of a generic dungeon, but it is more XP, right? This is actually interesting. Get me to Scroll Town portal. I'm gonna kill Dark Stalker. Die, you stalker. You came here into my house. And they're like, wait, you came into my house. It's like, no I didn't. This is my house. Now, because I'm taking it over from you, you dumb bastard. Let's start punching him in the face. Like, ow. It's kind of rude. Oh, that is so good. That was my bow. My god. Free amplified damage. It don't mind if I do. That is such a nasty curse, to be honest. I wonder why they glitter. Oh, that's inner sight from the rogue. It's like, why are they glowing? Nah, skeleton for sure. I'm not really going to bother with skeleton mage until I can get revive. Oh, they were fighting a big demon. It's like I thought so. But... it's like I thought so, but... I am overburdened. No, I'm not, you stupid fool! I'm fine. I think I only lost one skeleton there, though, so not bad. Sort of something that is not working in my favor right now is the Necromancer. Is I have a very small army size. I have 4 things. By this level, I'd have like a billion things as a druid, which is like nice, but again, that's early game. And one thing I'll be getting as the Necromancer is like a bunch of revive monsters, which is, yeah, they just like recommend 10 points into there, and it's like, even with just 10 points, you get like 10 revive monsters that will be a lot more powerful than the thing that you just killed, so yeah. It's like Resurrect mini boss. There we go. The only issue with it is that it's a duration, but that makes sense. I mean, even Diablo 3, it functions differently, but not too different. It's still like a duration. But you like resurrect all the monsters, and you just have like, I went from having 5 monsters and now I have 500. And they're all under my control trying to kill you, so it's like, okay then. I am the master of life and death. Call me a frog and I'll make you dance. Dance, you stupid devil cat. You don't know me, I don't know you. We don't know each other. We just met after all. Thank you for illuminating them. That is honestly kind of nice. It's your major function as the rogue, but yeah. Die, you stupid potatoes. I'm a potato, you're a potato, we're all potatoes. Except Frank, who's not a potato, he is a tomato. Which is not to be confused with a cucumber, even though, why would you confuse a freaking tomato with a cucumber? If you think a cucumber is tomato, then, I don't know. I guess it's not too crazy considering that tomatoes start off green, but... Stop resurrecting them, you stupid jerk. My bow is kind of underperforming now though. Which makes sense, I've had it for a while. Also, I don't have any skills for it. God damn it. You're overburdened. Oh, I do have a lot of stuff. Boom. I just put 167, and I'm not even at full, but I'm pretty much full. I do have enough for the thing? I do, but just enough. I have to do that, and that, and that. I can pick it. No! There. I don't know if I have work tomorrow. I might. Yeah, just check and make sure there's my mic goes down. Yeah, it is. Boom. Wait. Oh wow. Dinosaur butts. Yes, identify my items, Decker. Okay, you fool. Don't you know it is a fool's errand to mess with me? I am fire. I am smoke. I am death. So saith Smog the Terrible, Smog the Death. Why are you buffering on me? I do not like that buffering signal. Hopefully it was fine. Now we'll go to the speed test just to make sure. And thank you. I shall run the speed test now. It is saying I'm getting around 85 megabytes per second, which is tolerable. Let us go. Charcy. You shall talk to me, is what you will do. Excuse me. Later, Chaucy. Wait a minute. Perhaps you have a bow that I could use to replace this bow. For this bow is not as powerful as I'd like it to be. In fact, it is kind of weak. You do not have a bow. Later, Charcy. Later.
Necromancer. I hoped I'd never have to lay my eyes on one of your kind again. These troubles in this area have brought out all kinds, I see. Nevertheless, your money's good. A spare weapon.
What do you have against me, old man? So that I bring back the dead. I do so that others might survive. Forgive me. Let me get to this bow. Amplified damage is good, but it's not good enough. I am a strong, independent man who don't need no woman. So saith me. I have some ruins though, which is honestly pretty awesome. Yeah, sure. Now we're doing 20 poison over seconds. That's damage to the undead, which who cares about that? 3 to 4 fire damage. So now we're doing 24 plus 10, 34. There we go. There we go, and then I throw on a skull once I get it, and boom. Now I'm healing myself. I'm sharding and farting. There we go. Give me that money. Just holy money. I do like the fact that I can just run it over and pick it up. Why did I pick up these boots? These boots were made for their bolts. These bolts were made for crossbows, and that's just what they'll do. Take on me, take me home. I'll be gone in a day. Oof, hard to hit that note. Yeah, no, this one right now. I know. I'm sorry. I'm trying. I need to work on my singing voice again, to be honest. I've been doing a little bit again. When I hurt my vocal cords, it's been hard. Because whenever I do anything with my chest, my brain's like, oh, dude, you gotta, like, stop right now, man, you're going to die. I'm like, it's not true. It's like, trust me, you're gonna die. So, yeah, there's that. But my milkshake brings all the boys to the yard, and they're like, you want to trade cards? And I'm like, what? Just what? It's kind of weird. I only have 4 things with me, but it's like, You get it. It's only an early game. But it's nothing like the small army I would like. I guess my thing is, when playing a game, I don't want to feel like completely useless. I want to feel like I'm contributing. So I guess for me, going with like tier list, I would want to shoot for like B to S tier, which I feel like most people are. C tier is like, I mean, it's C, you know? As in, see you later. See you never. See you suck my nuts. And you're like, what, dude? No, not sucking here. I am a man from Alabama. What? I don't know. Look, if I thought about the things I said, then I would think about them. There we go, much better damage. The only thing was my bow was starting to fall off damage-wise, and I was like, need to upgrade that shit then.
This place has the stench of demons about it.
Of course it does, you dumb bastard. Oh. Bah! Aye. I am crying and shaking RN. I just randomly got tired again, which is not surprising. I was up kinda late and had to wake up kinda early. But here, we made it to the spot. We're in the outer cloister. Next time we do this, we should be able to beat Act 1. Yeah, we're pretty much there. Cool beans. So, thank you all for watching. You beautiful creatures, you have a beautiful day, or whatever.